Welcome back to Stratazine. Glad you could be with us today. We are again coming to you from the communication department at Brigham Young University, Idaho, in the balmy weather from Rexburg, Idaho. So today we're talking about something that's probably not new, but maybe hope to give you a little bit of insight into the marketing funnel and maybe a little bit more about how you keep people in it from a communication perspective. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Connor, why don't you start us off?
Of course. So the topic specifically that we called it was building a loyal viewer base. How to keep an audience coming back using the content funnel. So before jumping into my specific segment of it, I want to give a brief overview of the content funnel for those who aren't aware. Content funnel is a content marketing strategy to get users interested and engaged in your content. There are many versions of it depending on where you look, but for the sake of today, it breaks down to 5 steps. Awareness. This is your first impression, making people aware of your content in the first place. Consideration, what makes your audience stay after that first impression. Consideration is the second, conversion is the third. There we go. Conversion, and these are where your call to action will be to get your audience to react the way you want them to. Afterwards is retention, how to keep the audience coming back over and over and over again. And the last step is advocacy, furthering the reach of your content by having your audience act to share it around. As we go through today, we hope to share how each step of the content funnel will help you with your content. As for me myself, I made a short video on awareness or how to properly hook your audience.
So you do not want to miss this. Ever wonder why so many posts on social media start with this or some other sensational statement? Or why we can't help but check what they have to say? Well, that is the concept of hooking an audience. You only have a few seconds to make a good first impression, and that's what a hook is all about. The first few seconds of your post determine whether somebody will scroll past your content or keep watching. According to the Content Marketing Institute, a good hook causes your audience to keep watching by setting expectations and exciting the audience to keep viewing. There is no one-size-fits-all hook. Making a great hook requires you to have knowledge of your content, where you're going to be posting it, and what kind of audience you want. However, there are some universal skills you can use to improve the hook on all of your posts. Use strong language that pulls the audience's emotions, keep it short, make sure you follow through on your hook without over-embellishing, and make good use of all the aspects of your content style, as seen in this graphic showing parts of a video post. For Stratazine, I'm Connor Covey.
All right, and with the video it showed, it did explain professional advice on how to hook your audience. But I think it's also worthwhile to open this up to actual audience members. So for you guys, what actually hooks you on somebody's content?
I think they are able to quickly establish value and set expectations. A couple of content creators I think are good at this would be Rhett and Link, because the first thing they do is they ask a question or make a statement, and then the next they say, let's talk about that, so it's recognizable. And they're not it's not clickbaity, but they're able to set expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this one creator. Their channel is called Sword Arts, Sell Sword Arts, and they're fencers, and so HEMA, and basically just sword fighting. Like they know what like realistic sword fighting is like and what it's like, but they don't just talk about what's good sword moves. They talk about kind of like what's interesting in like sword fight choreography in like movies and entertainment. So I like them a lot because they'll establish exactly what they're going to discuss right in the start of the video. And I don't really know how to describe it. But they just say, usually it's a question about, is this an accurate sword fighting move or something like that? And that's interesting. And it just kind of establishes very quickly and concisely, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Something I do actually want to circle back to what you said about clickbait is something that was shown in my research and even shown in the video, even if I didn't verbally mention it, is that hooks are not clickbait, because clickbait kind of, and even if it works, it does kind of lie to the viewer. We go in with the wrong expectations of it. A good hook does not use clickbait to get our attention, because then it sets false expectations. It might over embellish, as I was saying, and we go in with wrong expectations and don't really think, oh, I've been lied to, I've been deceived.
Yeah, I think it's very good if you're getting like, if you want a bunch of people to see it like momentarily, but you're not going to get a consistent audience if you use clickbait, because they're going to feel like a little bit betrayed when they see your content.
Yeah, it's a good first, like, it gets people in, it doesn't keep people.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The hook, I mean, if you don't get people in the funnel, the next steps don't matter, right?
Yeah.
So the hook, while simple, is really crucial. Lately, I've been exploring a lot of like, hey, dad's cooking dinner tonight. And I think one area that is really in need of what you're talking about, Connor, is like the online recipe area. I want the recipe. I don't want to read about 100 years of family tradition on 5 scrolling pages before I get to the recipe, right? Just show me the ingredients.
This will rock your world. Never
Exactly.
shows you what it is.
Yeah. Nona Smith back in 1904. It's like, okay, what do I need? Flour? Do I need what do I need? What do I need? Right? Like,
What did she use in
and
1904?
then I'm
I
on
need
to
to
the
know.
next content, right? Because the
Yeah.
hook is so delayed, right? So I think that's great. So imagining we get people hooked, then that leads us to Ty in the kind of the second step of this model, talking a little bit more about consideration.
Sure. Consumers have many needs and questions. There are just as many ways to address them. In fields like marketing, sales, branding, and social media, their goal is to have guide potential customers towards making a decision as quickly as possible. The faster they move out to the consideration, the more likelihood of purchase. And the same thing goes with the longer they take to decide, the more likelihood they would choose a competitor instead. The video would explain what the consideration stage is and what influences purchasing decisions.
And potential customers evaluate their. Hello. The consideration stage is the point in the decision-making process where potential customers evaluate their options before making a purchase or commitment. During this stage, they gather information through research, questions, personal preferences, and emotional responses to different choices. Individuals and groups rely on reviews, websites, blogs, and other trusted sources to guide their decisions. Customers often focus on factors such as customer service, price, quality, and quantity. Caffeine and energy drink enthusiasts use Red Bull, Mountain Dew, Monster, Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi. Then they naturally compare how well the brands would benefit them. Is the energy drink enough to keep me awake? How many calories does it have? Does it taste good? A vending machine is a great example of consideration in the customer's journey because it requires key decisions before the purchase. This is Strategy. I'm Ty Williams.
Yeah, it's interesting about how the vending machine could be a great comparison for the consideration stage. Has anyone here ever researched competitors before buying or trying a product that they're interested in?
Yeah. So one experience I had actually at the start of this school year, I was trying to figure out, because I had just gotten married at that point, and so we were moving into a new apartment, and that's kind of like you don't really have much, and so you're trying to figure out your apartment, and we were gonna buy a console, and we needed to buy a gaming console that could have like streaming services, so my wife could watch TV when she wanted, and I could play games I'd be happy with, but it was kind of hard to choose because there was a lot of different decisions that went into that, and eventually I liked what you said in the video about emotional responses, because what ended up tilting the difference after getting all the logic and pros and cons there was an emotional response of, well, this console was the one she was used to growing up. And so that's the one we went with. And the same thing, when I was buying a hosting domain, a hosting service for a website I wanted to make, I went with things that friends recommended to me. And it was an emotional response that actually tipped it after making as many logical deductions as I could. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how that works together. So
I've had this happen frequently. Most recently, actually, was with vitamins. My sister recommended me some vitamins from the brand Ollie. It's usually considered a really good brand, but they're kind of pricey, and for me, I didn't personally like the taste that much. So I tried just a generic, I think it was some sort of Walmart brand, Equate or something like that. And they tasted better, but they have less of the particular vitamin I was looking for. So it's kind of interesting how many different factors go into it. Especially for me, I'm always thinking about so many things. So honestly, I started with Ollie, I switched to the other one, but then I bought Ollie again because I'm worried about that vitamin that I really want. So it's interesting to me kind of all the different factors that draw into it, because I haven't even ever seen an ad for these things, right? It's just trying the product that I've been in this consideration stage, and I still can't decide which one I want to go with long term. But it's been interesting to see all the different things that you kind of look at when you're considering which that you might want to stay with, you know?
Yeah. And then to quickly loop it back into the social media conversation, those same factors do contribute to our social posts. Like I'm taking advantage of different factors that you have, like reasons to make them stay. Based on this versus potential competitors in your niche. I'm using persuasion tactics like emotions, pathos, as well as logos, ethos, those different types of argument types to have reasons and your potential reasons and convincing factors for them to stay within your content as well.
Yeah, it's definitely true. We all focus on the comparisons and how it impacts us.
There's so many options in every field, whether it's vitamins, gaming consoles, doormats, whatever it is. There's so many different options. This conversion is pretty important, right? Important part of the funnel. So let's keep moving down the funnel, right? So Sarah is talking about conversion.
Thanks.
Right? Go ahead.
I did some research on the conversion step of the funnel, whether that action is watching more content, clicking a link, or buying a product. The audience needs to move from being aware that a brand exists to acting, specifically why they need to act and why they need to act now. So I looked into that a little bit.
According to MechLabs, there are 6 factors to consider in conversion: motivation, value, proposition, friction, anxiety, and incentive. An example of this is in this ad: our product can fix your problem, it's sturdier and cheaper than our competitors, 10% discount for the next 24 hours if you buy now. If you aren't satisfied, we offer a refund, and simply click below to have it shipped to your address. Now, at different stages in the content funnel can assist in conversion. For instance, awareness builds value, consideration can help with anxiety. The conversion has to balance each factor in order to be able to complete the transaction. Now, VMware Institute found that the average online shopping cart abandonment rate was about 70.22%. After some investigation, they found that it was due to problems such as preferred payment methods were unavailable, need to re-enter credit card information, website errors and crashes, or slow loading pages. They were able to increase the conversion rate to approximately 35% through better checkout design and friction removal, such as enabling guest checkout, using Google Sign-In for payment info, and optimizing the site. So when you decrease the difficulty, that's much easier than increasing motivation. That research has shown that a 371% increase in clicks for emails with a single call to action as opposed to multiple ones, which can dilute the message. Using a button instead of a link can increase click-throughs by 28%. And forms with 3 fields had a 25% conversion rate, whereas those with 6 or more dropped to 15% or lower. Now, in content creation, a simplified conversion process can look like a clear call to action, a link in bio, or even better, a button to the site. And then once they do follow that to the site, an optimized landing page that clearly communicates what it is that you're asking for from the audience. This is Sarah with Strategy.
So my question after that was, what is an example of something that moves you from passively watching content to choosing to act?
So for me, I really like everything in your video. Honestly, so much of it I relate to. But a big thing is an emotional reaction, and also, as you mentioned, a good, clear call to action. I think my biggest pet peeve is when the call to action isn't very clear, which does happen sometimes, and it makes it confusing. But if it's very clear, like link in bio, or hey, here's the link, hey, here's where to find it, it makes it so much easier to act when you do have an emotional reaction instead of just being frustrated about where or where not to find what it is they're trying to offer.
Also, something that I heard is being specific and specifically choosing one. I think it was MatPat or someone who said something about if you add too many call to actions to confuse people, like make sure to like and subscribe and check my Patreon and check my Twitch, and adding this and this and this and this. Well, sure, show yourself, promote yourself, get yourself out there. I can respect that. It can be overwhelming for a viewer, and so it's always nice to try and find one specific call to action and stick and commit to that sort of engagement so as to not overwhelm the viewer.
Yeah, I find myself feeling that same way if I'm really reading a piece of content that I'm engaged with and I'm learning from and that's interrupted by a call to action like an ad. I will not click anything just to spite you because you interrupted my consumption of what I wanted to actually be reading. Like,
Shout out the essentially in content sponsorships. Speaking of, and this is sponsored by.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. So kind of continuing on down getting to the bottom part of the funnel, right, where our goals are and where we want to take people. Abigail, why don't you walk us through some retention ideas?
Yeah, well, we know the customer journey doesn't stop once they subscribe or buy something. The next step is keeping people hooked even after they've been converted, right? We've done all that work, but we want to keep that work going. Retention in the funnel is keeping people engaged after they've acted. We need repeat consumers, repeat buyers, etc. And even advocates that we'll talk about later. According to LinkedIn, 84% of consumers trust peer recommendations over branded content, but you have to gain that trust first, right? So how can we do that?
How can we grow brand loyalty? An article in Harvard Business Review suggests that loyalty is a ladder and consumers step up one rung at a time. The goal is to get people to climb the ladder and remain with your brand long term. We want to establish long-term loyalty through consistent messaging, community, and emotional connections. This will help them up the loyalty ladder. Adobe says that consistency is key. Consistency builds trust. Consistency is important in what you post, how you act, and how your product or service works. Especially when building content around a product, you're going to want consistent messaging, personalized experiences when possible, and consistent post-action dialogue, which will keep people wanting to come back to your content or product. You also need to be willing to meet needs, being willing to listen to customers and adapt a little. Produce the kind of content or product that your customers will want to keep watching and want to keep following. As always, my favorite part is building a community, and I think a really great way of doing this can be to provide a space for community engagement. There are many different ways of doing this, but I've seen it most successful in a Facebook group, Discord server, or other brand forum where influencers and content creators can chat and interact with their community, and their community can interact within each other. Sometimes this can be as simple as your Instagram comment section, but it's a great way to keep people engaged and reminded about your brand. For Stratazine, I'm Abigail.
So now we have a few action items to help us start growing brand loyalty, but how do we know if it's working? Well, Adobe suggests looking into things like repeat purchase rate and referral traffic from customer shares. I like to look for users who frequently comment on my posts and interact with my content, but this can be a lot harder to quantify, even though it's incredibly important. So my question is, what do you think might be an effective way to measure brand loyalty and to know if your methods are working or not?
I think the biggest part of it is, as we learn about the group page, is that like when we comment, we have friends that also like to join because they are notified about, hey, I don't want to miss out. They can call that FOMO. They don't want that wrong. And a large part is like the frequency of the content and seeing if this relates to their interests. To know the retention effectiveness, we watch the loyalty. That's a huge part because it's their baseline of income for businesses in general, because they're making the purchases and they are just wanting to keep the interaction going for your social media page.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. And that makes me think about, combing the comment section, you'll see who has seen a lot of this creator's content based on what they say. Like they'll like sometimes there's even like inside jokes that are just built up and you're like, what's the inside joke? But you know that it's an inside joke, you know? And so they mention things like, oh, you know, like silly so-and-so, you know, like they'll just say something that clues you in like, okay, these people have been following for a long time. And there's no reason why you can't do that as a creator. And I feel like if you leverage analytics good, and see who's subscribing and when you see what videos perform well, combining the two could probably leverage a lot of insight into, you know, your brand's loyalty. So
I think there's a very big difference on brands and creators and products that do well in understanding retention, because retention by itself is an easy metric to measure. How many people came back, right? Like, okay, but why? So people that understand retention can be like, oh, this is what it is. You know, it's how many people bought our brand or used our service or followed our content and then did it again. But the ones that are really good at it can tell you why they did it again. Okay, so here's the post they watch most common. Why? What do they have in common? And kind of deep diving into that retention a little bit really gets brands in understanding their audience and able to like move people to this final step of the funnel, right? So retention, I think, is pretty crucial, and a lot of people will do a lot to understand, okay, who is it, but why are they here? Why won't you go away, right? Like, in a good way. Right? Yeah, for sure. All right, so Ethan, why don't you wrap us off? If we do all these things that we've been talking about, moving people down the funnel, we get to the end step.
Yeah, so the end step is advocacy, and I like to rephrase it a little bit to a question of why someone might share a piece of content, why someone might advocate for your brand, for your content. And so when viewing it, you know, well, what can I do to make people share my content? How can I make my viewers into advocates for what I create? That's a question that I've kind of made a video for to introduce the topic. So,
how can you make the viewers you reach online actually share your content? Without digging too much in the weeds, that's the question we're going to cover. The most consistent answers to that question that I found in my research is whether or not a piece of content has A, inherent value or meaningfulness, and B, social relevance. It's crucial for a piece of content to have inherent value or meaningfulness. Otherwise, it will be hard to engage viewers. So, outline the value that you plan to provide. Is it to entertain or educate? What kind of entertainment? What information? When you do gain a following, however large or small, pay attention to signs of what your audience finds valuable in your content. And they differ from what value you thought you were providing, and that may mean you end up going in a direction that's different than you originally planned. In any case, if you want people to truly find your content worth sharing, you'll figure out the purpose your content is made to fulfill, even if that means a change of your plans. Next, it's important that it's socially relevant. What does socially relevance mean? Penn Today says, when we communicate with others, we consider what the other person is thinking or wants to hear, a quality known as social relevance. With that in mind, consider the fact that you're likely not going to reach all of your target audience by yourself. Therefore, if you've already found the answer to the question, what the value and purpose of your content is, then you've acquired social relevancy, because your viewers will share content that they find valuable with people that they know will find value in it too. For Stratazine, I'm Ethan Southwick.
So, quick side note too. I hope you've enjoyed the very well put together stick figure drawing that my wife made in under 5 minutes on her phone to help me put this video together. Anyway, so but yeah, I really tried to investigate like what makes someone an advocate for your content, and there was tons of qualifying factors, almost too much to consider depending upon what platform you're on, and sometimes and I like what way earlier in the podcast today, like there was a bunch about hooking your audience and emotional appeal. Sometimes too much of an emotional appeal can just make your content feel clickbaity, and not enough won't make it interesting at all. Mm-hmm. And then there's just the capricious nature of the algorithm and timing, and there's just too many factors to adjust for. And so the only real definitive answer I found in every single rule book different websites tried to make on how to turn your viewers into advocates was to make sure it has value to someone and make sure that you're doing the other steps in the funnel correctly, like knowing why. Just the previous topic, knowing why someone is liking your content and making sure you continue to provide that. You can't directly control someone pressing the share button, but if you do all those steps and you know why your content has value and not just what you think, and not just providing the value you think you're providing, you won't be discordant with your audience at all. You'll be right on track. So I wanted to ask, when have you guys received some kind of reel or short or any kind of piece of content that you know was more relevant to you than the person who shared it with you? Or alternatively, when have you received a piece of content you've enjoyed?
Can't think of an exact specific moment, but for me, just as a general practice I have with my friends, because it's the typical thing of like you find posts on social media and like send it over to them. It's like, this reminded me of you, whether it be like some sort of like shared interest we both have, or like this is a random art of Hatsune Miku, and I know you love Miku, so I'm just gonna send this art of Miku over to you or something, right. Or just something based on personal interest, like sharing it, whether it's just a general thing or a neurodiverse thing or whatever, right. Regardless, like the only example I could think of is like sometimes one of my friends from back home, she's a pretty decent philosophy nut, and so like whenever I find like random weird philosophical analyses on like YouTube or something, I send over to her and stuff, and to see what sort of conversation that leads to, whether it be like I've seen it, I agree with it, or I've seen this, interesting points, I don't like the person, or whatever. It leads to some nice conversations, because I'm like, I know that you like this. You are much more well-read on this than me. I thought it was neat. What do you think?
Yeah, and that nails for
whether that actually, I'm not sure that actually gets either of us more engaged in the actual person's content, unfortunately, just because of the way we do it on a more surface level. But it leads to more interesting like conversations between the two of us, at least.
Right. Yeah, that's so you nailed social relevance right there in a cinch.
Oh.
Oh, I've had this happen a lot, so I love cats. And my mom also likes cats, but I don't think she's as much of a fanatic as me, but she will send me cat reels all day long. And I'm like, okay, but she knows I'll enjoy it, so she sends it to me, even though it's not something she would normally sit and watch, but she'll sit and watch it because it reminds her of me. And so, I definitely have had this happen a lot, to where it's more relevant to me than it is even to her.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know for myself, I used to be the friend who just kind of sends endless pieces of content to my brothers or my friends, and then it's become recently more focused. And I like what you said about like what you know they're interested in, Connor, and like shared interest with you and Abigail with cats, and you know that. And Connor, when you said your friend loved philosophy, and you'll share something just because you know she'll like it.
Or at least will lead to an interesting conversation with her, even if she hates it, whether the person on principle, based on like their personal beliefs that she knows about but I don't, or just based on that person's understanding philosophy versus hers. Even if it doesn't necessarily resonate with them, it always leads to a fascinating conversation.
Exactly. And that's what makes those pieces of content valuable, just because of our interest in them and the fact that they can lead to interesting conversations. I mean, that's how you're going to get people to advocate for your content. If it's something that you know you're interested in, as long as you're intentional about it, there's a chance that other people will be interested in it too. And you target that audience, and you always are just intentional with your content creation, So
yeah, what I've loved about this whole conversation is there's no right way to do this.
Yeah.
There's no right, because if there was, probably like 29 minutes ago, we would have just made a video and it's like, here's the marketing funnel equation. Just do this every time for everything, and it will work. But it doesn't. And that's the great thing about Calm and looking at some of these, with content, or what if it's not content? What if it's a product? What if it's a service? What if it's an event? That marketing funnel is still there, but it looks very different.
Yeah,
but
it differs, because if there was the one right way to sell your content, we'd have that by now. Everyone would be doing the exact same thing, as opposed to going into their different niches or having this entire social marketing as a field of study.
Yeah, and everybody would be billionaire influencers
Yeah.
because it would all work all the time.
Yeah.
So I think a great discussion today, a lot of ideas, great thoughts moving through, keeping people in that marketing funnel, getting them to that advocacy stage. So really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you all. And so for our group, we're signing off. Join us on Stratazine for the next one.